So I'm 27 now, but ever since I was a little kid, I've always had this feeling that really stressed me out. And I didn't have the words to really describe it back then because I never really heard anyone else talk about it, at least not nearly as conceptualized as I'm about to, or attempt to, anyways. And what that feeling is that there's just not anywhere left to go. Let me try to explain what I mean. So, for the mass majority of our history as humanity, most of the earth was basically no man's land, right? When we lived the hunter gatherer lifestyle, you could basically go wherever you wanted. You could hike through valleys, cross mountains, explore lakes, rivers. There was just so much vast, untouched wilderness. And yeah, I realized that wilderness was extremely dangerous and all that. It was full of predators and rival tribes, but we were truly free back then. You know what I'm saying? You could just go anywhere. It was like an open world game back then. Even once we started to develop agriculture and actual societies and settle down some, yeah, there was towns and cities in ancient times, but in between those towns and cities, there was still that massive no man's land wilderness for countless miles in basically every direction. The world wasn't ruined back then like it is now. And it wasn't until pretty recent times, I don't think. The last few 100 years or so, I would say. I just randomly saw this one guy scrolling through Instagram Reels the other day. Doom scrolling, like, it's really good for your mental health, I know. But anyway, he kind of was getting at the same thing I am. But I really like the metaphor he used to describe how things are now. If you ever played Minecraft as a kid or whatever, you know how back in the day when you would start a new world and everything was so fresh and full of resources and just like the beauty of the natural world, you could do anything. If you needed something, you could just go gather it from the world. The world was your oyster, literally. You could create or do whatever you wanted, right? Well, that's how the real world was for most of the time we've existed as a species, except with real world consequences and dangers, obviously, like I know that. Now compare that, creating your own world, to how it was when you would join an old, like, heavily used server. Everything would be ruined, like grief to hell, all the resources depleted, the landscape torn apart, ripped apart by other players, people's ugly ass builds everywhere, and then other people come behind them and destroy them halfway. Like 3 or 4 players have all the diamonds that there is to be found in every direction. So anyone new joining the server doesn't even have a chance. The world is just used up and ruined, and that's really kind of how I see our actual world nowadays. Obviously, it's a little bit more complicated than that, comparing it to a freaking Minecraft server or whatever, but I think it was a good, like, simplifying metaphor. The modern world we live in isn't really an open world game anymore. You can't just go wander out and explore the wilderness because there just isn't any left. It's all but destroyed. I'm sure other places aren't much different, but here in America where I live, everywhere you go looks like a trashy Dollar Tree parking lot. The cities are just a hellhole, right? And even the more supposedly rural areas, every single town has a McDonald's, a Dollar General, an Exxon. There's big telephone poles and ugly electrical lines hanging and running down everywhere, crumbling and hideous corporate gray or brown box infrastructure. And this is basically everywhere you go across the whole country. That's what America looks like now. It's like the whole thing, every area of land is used up to be as efficient for cars and to generate as much revenue as possible. The whole country is basically just a huge parking lot. Like, it's just gross. It's just ugly to look at, like, everywhere you go across the whole country. Now, what I was getting at, though, about our world not really being an open world game anymore, is that you can't really go anywhere, like I've said. And what I mean by that is every single piece of land is either owned by the state, a corporation, or an individual in some cases. So you literally can't freely travel in the world because everything is used up and taken. You just can't go outside and walk off in any direction because pretty soon you're going to be quote unquote trespassing. So really in today's society, you're almost trapped in a cage, like an open air prison. You're limited to your home, if you're lucky enough to even have one, that is, your place of work, some stores maybe, and the roads. You're allowed to travel within your maze-like cage, basically. That's it. And yeah, sure, there's a few national forests, parks, stuff like that, as people always mention whenever I brought this kind of stuff up in the past. But those places are tiny compared to the land that's been used up. And they continue to shrink as companies buy up areas and destroy what nature and forest remain. And then they tell you you're not allowed to go there anymore. You can't really freely travel in these national forests that still exist either. There's still rules. Of course, I'm not saying anyone should just be able to go there and do whatever and like harm the environment further than it already is. But even if you just go there and you're not doing anything to hurt the wildlife or whatever, you can't just freely go about your business and decide you want to live in nature and not participate in the late stage capitalist hellhole anymore. If you try to, they'll eventually find you and put you in jail for illegally camping or having an illegal campfire or some other made up BS rule. Like, just think about that. You can't just go out into the forest and be left alone. It's illegal to go sleep in the woods. It's like it's against the law to exist outside of your systemic cage. You're only allowed to visit these public areas under strict rules. Now imagine how this system affects someone who, for whatever reason, ended up homeless. Even if it's due to some factors that are no fault of their own, what is that individual even supposed to do? They can't sleep on the street or in their car somewhere or in the woods, like I said, because all that is trespassing or something. So, like, where is someone that's in that situation even supposed to go? It's like it's illegal, like they're doing something wrong just by daring to exist in a world they had no choice of being born into anyways. Now, I realize a lot of people who are homeless do sleep on the street and stuff like that, just because literally they don't have anywhere else to go sometimes. But they are often told to leave and get trespassed from from every area they go to, and get caught up in a never-ending cycle of getting arrested, not being able to pay fees or whatever, getting let out, and then the same thing just happens again and it starts over because, like, again, you can't just go anywhere and exist anymore. And nowadays, most jobs won't pay you enough to even not be homeless. So if you don't live with family or roommates or something, you're basically just screwed. Honestly, don't know what they're going to do when the average person just simply can't afford to live in society anymore. But that's a whole other conversation. Nature itself and the natural world is so destroyed in the timeline that we live in that I swear seeing like an elk or a bear feels like a borderline religious experience. Like seeing a majestic large animal is so rare for most people that it feels magical or something. At least to me it does. Even like looking at a forest or a really old tree can make me have that feeling. Like I'm getting the glimpse of a magical fairy tale world or some shit, right? I don't know if other people get that feeling. It's kind of hard to explain, but I've always had that, like, even as a kid, seeing like natural settings and certain animals and stuff like that. But anyway, I think this is why so many people are all depressed and anxious all the time now, because we all basically have zoochosis. And if you don't know what that is, you can look it up. It's like what happens to wild animals in zoos that are trapped in a really unnatural, stressful environment, like a small cage. It basically causes them to go insane and just pace back and forth or rip their fur out or bite the cage bars so hard they break their teeth, because they just aren't built to live like that, and it drives them literally crazy. And that's what I think is the cause of the mental health crisis going on today in our world, at least a really big part of it. Humans were designed to live a nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle, not be trapped for 8+ hours every day in a fluorescent concrete box worrying about how they're going to pay rent, even though they're slaving their whole day away every day already. It's just insane to me how we let it get this bad. And people always tell me stuff like, oh, but ancient humans didn't have modern medicine. You die at like 30 for some disease that's treatable today. First of all, most of our ancestors didn't actually kick the bucket at 30 years old. That average lifespan is skewed because of high infant mortality rates back then, which I understand is pretty bad. Yeah, I know that's pretty bad that happened. But if you survived childhood back then, you were pretty likely to be able to live a decent full life. And even if you didn't live to be super old back then, the trade-off for what we have today just doesn't seem worth it to me. Because who's really living more? An ancient human that lived in a natural setting and in nature, experienced a real life, working for themselves and just, doing what humans are meant to do for 30 years? Or a modern wage slave that spends all day, every day chained to their desk at work in what is basically a white room? I could keep going on and on about this stuff and stuff like this, but I think you get the point, especially if you've listened to me ramble on this far. I don't even know how long this video's gone on now. I don't think it's been that long. It probably hasn't even been 10 minutes. But yeah, I don't know if anyone will listen to this, but if you did listen to it all the way through, I appreciate you listening to me ramble on. And let me know in the comments, if anyone sees this, how you feel about things that I said, or if you've ever thought like this or have anything to add, please let me know, and I appreciate it. Thank you.